Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take source material and pull out the most interesting bits for you.
That's right. We sift through it all, connect the dots, and basically help you get up to speed.
And today we're looking at something really specific to the United States, but maybe familiar in concept elsewhere, the SAT college entrance exam.
Yeah, for many American students, this one test feels like it determines, well, a whole lot about their future. Where they go to university, what opportunities open up.
It's a high-stakes situation. So we've gathered sources, historical stuff, current analyses, debates to really unpack it.
Our goal is pretty simple. Figure out what the SAT actually is, how it got so important in the U.S., and why it's causing such a stir right now.
Okay, so where do we start? The beginning, I guess.
Yeah, you really have to. The origins are, well, frankly, a bit uncomfortable. It starts with a psychologist, Carl Brigham, back in the early 20th century.
Right, and he was focused on measuring intelligence, wasn't he? Started with tests for soldiers.
Exactly. But his methods and conclusions were deeply flawed. He'd give these puzzles, and based purely on scores, he ranked racial groups by supposed intelligence.
And he ignored obvious things like language barriers or lack of schooling.
Completely. He just assumed the scores showed innate, fixed ability tied to race. He even wrote some pretty disturbing things about, racial admixture and keeping certain groups out.
Wow. Okay. Quite a foundation for an educational test.
It is, and he adapted those ideas into the first scholastic aptitude test, the SAT, for college applicants. Think word puzzles, like picking related terms from a list, including things like chops and liver.
Huh. Doesn't sound much like high school curriculum.
Not really, but back then it wasn't a big deal. Very few students took it in, say, 1941. Colleges didn't need it much.
Because fewer people went to college then. They could review applications more personally.
Precisely. Less than 10% of Americans went. Admissions could be more holistic.
So what changed? How did it become this huge thing?
World War II. Or rather, what happened after. The GI Bill sent millions of returning servicemen, mainly white veterans, to college.
So suddenly colleges were flooded with applications.
Overwhelmed. They needed a fast way to sort people. And the SAT offered a number, a simple ranking.
And the College Board, who owns the test, saw an opportunity.
You bet. They rebranded it. It wasn't an intelligence test anymore. It was about college preparedness. They pushed studies showing SAT scores plus grades predicted college success.
And colleges bought it.
Hook, line, and sinker. The number of test takers exploded from maybe 10,000 in 41 to over 2 million today, taking the SAT or its rival, the ACT. As competition grew, colleges relied on that score even more.
Okay, so it solves a logistical problem for colleges. But what about the students? What does the score really measure? That's where the controversy comes in, right?
Exactly. This is the core issue. Does it measure readiness? Or does it measure something else, like wealth?
You mean there's a link between family income and scores?
A really strong one. It's undeniable in the data. Students from families earning under $20,000 a year score, on average, way lower, like hundreds of points lower than students from families earning over $200,000.
Wow. So defenders say the test just reflects existing inequality, like unequal schools lead to unequal scores.
That's the argument, that it's not the test's fault, it just shows the disparities already there in the U.S. system, which, those disparities are real.
But critics say the test makes it worse, that it perpetuates the inequality.
Right. They point to the cost, not just of taking the test, but especially test prep. Wealthier families can spend thousands, even tens of thousands, on private tutors and courses.
Giving them a huge advantage that has nothing to do with innate ability or even school quality.
Exactly. Plus, there are ongoing claims about bias in the questions themselves, potentially disadvantaging minority students statistically.
And this matters because higher scores often get you into more selective colleges, which research links to higher future earnings.
Correct. There's a pattern where attendance at elite schools, often requiring high scores, correlates with higher parental income and leads to higher graduate income. It can look like a cycle of privilege.
But wasn't there that interesting finding that if low-income students do get into those selective schools, they tend to do just as well afterward?
Yes. That's crucial. It suggests the potential is there, it's the access, the opportunity, that's the barrier, and the SAT has been a major gatekeeper for that access.
Okay, so with all this controversy, things have started to change, yeah?
Definitely. The SAT itself was redesigned in 2016, trying to align it more with high school curricula, less with obscure puzzles.
And the big shift, test optional.
Huge shift. Many U.S. colleges now let applicants choose whether or not to submit SAT or ACT scores.
But it's not simple, right? Test optional means different things in different places.
Very true. Some are optional for everyone. Some have GPA cutoffs. Some are test blind, meaning they won't look at scores at all. It's a patchwork.
So why would a student still take it if it's optional?
Well, for one, some colleges still require it or strongly prefer it. Also, a good score can help if your grades aren't stellar. And very importantly, scores are often still needed for merit scholarships.
Ah, so not submitting could cost you money, even if you get in.
Potentially, yes. And colleges might use scores for placement in courses, too. So the debate isn't settled. There are even lawsuits arguing the tests are discriminatory.
It boils down to that fundamental question, doesn't it? Does it level the playing field with a standard measure, or does it just reinforce the advantages some already have?
That's the tension, exactly.
So, wrapping this up, the SAT in the U.S., it started with some really questionable ideas, became incredibly powerful almost by accident because colleges needed a sorting tool, and now faces major pushback about fairness.
Yeah, it really makes you think about how we try to measure potential with a single number and how much that number reflects opportunity versus ability.
Even the College Board folks say it should just be one factor, not the final word.